What is going on, guys? I hope you guys are having a great week. It is December 22nd, 2023. This is LSU Recruiting HQ. I'm your host, Michael, and we have so much to talk about. We got breaking news going on as we speak. We got LSU recruiting. The early signing period wraps up today. If you're watching on Friday, LSU currently sits with the number 10 class in the country, sixth best in the SEC right now, and looking to add a couple more maybe here today and maybe even some later on in February when we get to that signing day. Like I said, man, we got so much to talk about, man. It's bowl season. We got college football on the TV every day, pretty much. It is a great time to be a college football fan. We got realignment. We got conferences and teams trying to get out of conferences and all that good stuff, man. But we're here to talk about LSU, so let's get it going. Let's start with LSU recruiting, or actually, let's start with the breaking news. As you guys probably know by now, offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock has decided he will take his talents back to Notre Dame. Was at Notre Dame several times. He had two separate stints there, one in the early 2000s, and then again he worked with Brian Kelly there around 2010-ish before going to Cincinnati. A tough loss for LSU fans, man. A lot of people were expecting coaching changes. None were expected on the offensive side of the ball. It was kind of set in stone. You obviously had the announcement of the extension with Mike Denbrock, but that doesn't seem like it went through because the board of supervisors has to approve every single contract, and just because it got announced, it was never officially put in front of the board. Because it was announced about 2 days before they had their meeting, and it just wasn't enough time for them to review the document and get everything approved. So the next meeting wasn't until February. So technically, it was kind of like a handshake deal. So that being said, Mike Denbrock is heading back to Notre Dame. What does that mean for LSU? At this point in time, kind of seems cloudy. Does LSU and Brian Kelly go after a guy who's called plays before, a reputable name? Obviously, the LSU job is going to attract so many names. The talent that LSU brings in every single year is one of the most attractive things about the job. And a good play caller is going to want to use those weapons and build a name for himself, right? But you also have guys like Joe Sloan on staff and Cortez Hankton who have opportunities to be offensive coordinators maybe down the road. Do one of them get promoted from within and you kind of keep that system going? I'm not really sure where Brian Kelly goes in that direction. I would expect him to probably go after somebody who's called plays before. No offense to those guys that are already on staff. I just think LSU is not a starting point job. Like, you don't go in there and that's your first head coach or your first time calling plays. So I expect Brian Kelly to go in that route. I could be wrong. Either way, I'm going to be happy as long as Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton stay on staff. That would be huge for LSU because those are two bright young coaches, and Joe Sloan has had a tremendous job recruiting the quarterback position. He's the favorite right now to land. He's the lead recruiter on Bryce Underwood up there in Michigan, the number one player in the country for next year's class. So keeping him on staff is a must, and I wouldn't mind seeing him call plays. LSU has a lot of options here, I think. Obviously, it sucks to lose Mike Denbrock, but, you know, it's what's best for him. It's what's best for LSU at the time, I guess, and you know, we wish him best of luck. So, that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump in straight into this 2024 recruiting class. Man, I've been hearing a lot of you guys talk about this recruiting class in the negative light, and I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Everybody, you know, raising hell about, oh, they're not this highly ranked. At some point, y'all got to realize, like, stars don't matter, right? They sit 10th nationally. It's not like they're 50th, you know? So, I mean, they got 67% of their commits out of the 27 are from the state of Louisiana. What did y'all complain about the most? Guys getting out of Louisiana, guys going to Alabama, guys going. Well, what has Brian Kelly done? He's just built a wall around Louisiana, and he has made it a priority that he wants Louisiana guys, and that's exactly what he's getting. All right. So you have 27 high school commits, you have 3 transfers, and right now you're sitting pretty good. You have 8 of the top 10 players in Louisiana right now. One you could still have a possibility of flipping here in Don McKinley. You have Wardell Mack, who originally committed to Florida, is now committed to Texas. LSU really hasn't been pursuing him very much, but look for that to get boosted up, man. We got a guy committing today that very well could pop for LSU. That could give them a boost in those rankings and get them firmly inside of the top 10. I think LSU will sign a top 10 class with ease, whether they sign the kid today or not, withstanding, because I think they're not done. I think they still got some guys they're looking at in the portal, and I think they got guys that are looking at in high school that may be committed to other teams right now. So, what does that mean for LSU? Let's kind of just go over the class. You have the star-studded lineup. Your top 4 commits are just the best of the best. Really, you get Trey'Dez Green, guy from Zachary, tight end, just a freak of nature. Hasn't even been playing football that long. He's already the number 1 tight end in the country, and that's just going to continue to rise as we lead into the final rankings whenever those come out for all of these sites. He's firmly within the number 1, number 2 range. And all of those sites, and he's only going to get better because he had a tremendous high school season. 6'6.5", 230, just an absolute monster out there. A tough matchup for anybody. He'd be a tough matchup for LeBron right now. And then you go get Weston Davis, probably the biggest flip of the 2024 recruiting cycle, a former A&M commit. He decommits. He's a 5-star offensive tackle out of Beaumont, Texas there. Like I said, was committed at the Aggies over there. Brad Davis and company did a tremendous job with him, kept pressuring him, and they ended up landing Weston Davis, who's going to be your best offensive line commit, which is a huge thing in this class, as you have already signed 5 offensive linemen. Probably the biggest story with this recruiting class is that all 27 players that committed have all signed, and they all signed within 4 to 5 hours on National Signing Day, which is amazing. Nobody's holding out. No excitement there on signing day, which was a relief for me trying to keep up with this thing. And then you got kind of like an underrated guy, right? A guy not many people are talking about in this class, but Deshaun McBride is a top tier safety at a position where you need depth and you need players. This is a player, man. Deshaun McBride out of Denham Springs, another in-state guy, one of the top 5 safeties in the entire country, not only in the state of Louisiana, just an all-around great player, has great size, great length, great speed. He's just everything you're looking for in an athlete, and still has such a high ceiling for where he could take his game. And then probably, in my opinion, the next set of rankings that come out, the biggest riser in that one is going to be Caden Durham. A lot of guys wanted to talk about Colin Simmons at the time, and Caden Durham was that kind of guy that got overlooked by the whole Colin Simmons thing out there in Duncanville. But boy, his senior year film is unreal. What he did in the state championship game, I believe he had 250 yards rushing in the second quarter. I'm not even sure what he ended up finishing at when they ended up capturing the state championship. But right now, a top 10 running back in the country. You have Caden Durham this year. You have guys like Harlan Berry and James Simon coming next year possibly. So that running back room is absolutely going to be loaded because Caden Durham is not taking a backseat to anybody. I don't care what you guys say. That kid has a tremendous ability to run the football. The main thing everybody kind of wants to talk about with this recruiting class, the defensive side of the ball. LSU signed a ton of defensive players, including 5 defensive backs. Just guys from the state of Louisiana, guys who are in the surrounding area here in Texas and in South Mississippi. You get guys like PJ Woodland, who is committed to Ole Miss. You got Mississippi State, excuse me, and then Bernard Causey was committed to Ole Miss, and he ends up flipping the kid from New Orleans, whose stock is slowly rising as well. And then you hit the JUCO for defensive linemen. You get a guy like Sean Washington, a former Georgia commit player, ends up leaving, going to JUCO, and ends up signing with LSU out of JUCO. You get guys like Wallace Foster, good nickel players coming from Warren Easton as well. And then you got the transfer portal guy. You got Jordan Gilbert out of U High here in Baton Rouge. Guys that are gonna fill in, man. Brian Kelly talked about this a lot, right? You guys want to know the direction of where he's trying to go. Maybe it's not the most high profile guys, but building depth in that room to where they don't have to go get 2 or 3 guys every single year out the portal, because that is not a recipe for success. The only way you're going to have success is if you can develop the talent within and then kind of piece together things in the portal. You can't rely on having to go get 2 corners every single year out of the portal. It's just not sustainable. We saw it this year. You missed on some guys, and it ended up killing LSU's chances of competing for a championship with the offense that they had this year. If you could develop some of that talent and be better in that back end, maybe this season turns out differently. So that is what Brian Kelly's approach was this year, and he executed to perfection. Now, let's talk about some guys that LSU still has on the radar. Obviously, we're all looking at the in-state guy, Don McKinley. LSU, Texas A&M doesn't seem to be a factor anymore, even though he still remains committed to the Aggies. It seems like a lot of these other schools are starting to find out that that's not where his heart lies. And he has taken it until February, which is great news for LSU. He has already set up an official visit with LSU, which is what I was waiting on, because you can read all the smoke from in-home visits and stuff like that, but until the kid comes on campus and commits that time frame to get to know your program and get to know your coaches and spend time on campus, all that talking stuff means absolutely nothing. So it's all about what the kid does for me, not what he says, not what he does. And that is a guy who is very reserved. He doesn't really speak about the recruiting, doesn't really necessarily like the recruiting process. But from what everybody's been telling me, it sounds like he's building a great relationship with Brian Kelly, which is one of the reasons why he is taking an official visit in January. So keep an eye out for that one. LSU is still pushing hard for a guy like Terry Bussey, one of the best players in the state of Texas, the #1 athlete in the country, another 5-star, another guy who could boost this class up and possibly propel them close to a top 5 ranking if they were to land both McKinley and Terry Bussey. But that one feels a little bit more far-fetched at the moment, but LSU is still doing everything that they can to sign him and kind of put a stamp on this 2024 class, because this 2024 class is just the beginning, because the 2025 class is going to be unreal. This class built mainly defensive and offensive line, and I think offensive players are going to love when they look and they see 5-6 offensive linemen signed in this class. They know that the foundation is built to have a successful offense. Who's going to be calling plays? I don't know, but I just know recruits are going to want to come play with the athletes that LSU is going to be signing at wide receiver, at running back. Like, there's not many kids in the country that are not going to want to come play for LSU. So next year's class is going to be a huge win for Brian Kelly. The state of Louisiana is loaded. If he can just keep most of those guys in state, man, you're going to finish easily within the top 5. And you have the potential, if you go get some big fish outside of the state of Louisiana, to finish with that #1 class. I would believe that would be the first time since they started keeping track of recruiting that LSU would have the #1 class in the country. So keep an eye out on that. A guy like Harlan Berry moved his recruitment back. He was supposed to commit this week. He ended up moving back to the All-American game on January 3rd. So he's going to sign then, or not sign, but he's going to announce his commitment then. You have the Bryce Underwood stuff coming in January. Kind of want to see where LSU goes with this offensive coordinator stuff, and maybe that hurts him, but maybe not. If you keep Joe Sloan, I think everything is all good on that front. I still like where LSU stands with all of that. That being said, man, that's all I got for today. Keep it short and sweet for you guys. I hope you guys have a blessed Christmas and a good New Year. We'll be back here next week talking about everything that happened, previewing the bowl game and everything like that. If any coaching news, make sure you're following us on Twitter. If you like the video, drop a like, comment, man. Subscribe to the channel. It's completely free. Costs you absolutely nothing, man. And I will see you guys next time. I appreciate you guys for watching.